Hi, folks. This is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report. Well, right now I wanted to be able to talk to you about the results of my own trout fishing that I've had this year. Well, lo and behold, I haven't got out on the water yet. But this year, the water system is different for all, not just trout fishing. It'll be different for everything else once it opens up in May. But because we had such a mild winter, the flow of water, the temperature of water, the state of whether there's ice on water or not, it's all changed. And the fish are going to react to that. Now, as I was trying to find new places where I could go trout fishing, because I've really missed it. My life has sort of gone in a different direction in fishing than it did when I was a kid. And I don't get to really experience the joys of trout fishing. A lot of you probably haven't either. So I was looking for an area, and I stopped the car at one of the stores where I thought, well, if they sold bait, then they would get fishermen in there that might have told us some things about the fishing. And I went back out, and there was a nice truck parked out. It hadn't been there when I went in, and there was a canoe at the back of it. And the guy was walking out to his truck, and I said, "Excuse me." And, he looks like, who the heck is this? And I said, I noticed you had the canoe. I wondered if you had been fishing. And he said, yes. And I said, well, I wondered if you knew if they'd stocked any of the waters around here right now. And at the time I was in Hopkinton. And I was thinking that I know the state stocks Hopkinton Creek earlier than some of the other waters. He didn't know. But I said, well, you've been fishing. And he said, yeah, I've been brook trout fishing over near Saranac. And I said, so how'd you do? And he kind of smiled. Yeah, we got some, but I'm not going to tell you where. And I wasn't offended because I know this is the nature of fishermen. They don't want to give up their secrets. Their secrets are what gives them the edge and allows them to catch fish. And so, but he told me that, yeah, they'd been doing really well fishing the ponds. The ponds were open earlier than ever before. And after the ice goes out in the pond, the fishing is usually some of the best that you can get all year because the fish aren't down in the deepest areas. They come up towards the surface because there's almost like a reversal of water temperatures and conditions from bottom to top. So my point now is that some of our best trout fishing we have, and I can't tell you the different ponds, but there's a number of them in the foothills of the Adirondacks. Before you even get into, we're not talking way up high, we're talking in all the foothill areas, and we've talked about the fact that there may be thousands of ponds. And what our DEC is trying to do is protect these ponds and lakes that have our native fish, the brook trout and the lake trout. And it's one of the most incredibly attractive and tourist potentially drawing type of fisheries that exist anywhere because they don't exist just anywhere. Trout need some of the most purest of conditions. They need colder water. They need high levels of oxygen. And there's so much that can affect that. But on the good side is we have so many of these ponds. If you were to go over near Paul Smith's and Saranac Lake and Tupper Lake and Lake Placid, there are ponds after ponds. You have to have a canoe or a kayak to get into them. But boy, the fishing can be once a year and once in a lifetime fishing for these beautiful brook trout and lake trout that exist in these ponds. And if I was to go, if I had the opportunity to go and know where these ponds are, now one thing the guy did tell me is the better ponds are where you got to walk back in. There may be trails. You got to have a light enough canoe or kayak or something that you can carry in to get to them. And then, you either use a fly rod. One of the most famous ways of catching Adirondack brook trout are to use a lake clear wobbler, and you can look that up online. They're still sold in places, but it's a system of blades that give flash and sound in the water to draw these brook trout. Then you tie a snelled hook on the end and use an angleworm. And that's one of the most popular ways through all the years. If I was going, I wouldn't do that. Not because I'm against it. I wouldn't do that. I'd be using a fly rod with a sinking fly line and a woolly bugger or a royal coachman or one of these kinds of little streamers or whatever. And the reason you use a sinking line is to get it to go down. These fish aren't yet feeding on top of the water, they're down. And if you can, and you got to cover a lot of water because you don't know where they're going to be. So you take your canoe, take a pair of paddles or oars, and you just slowly paddle your way around the lake. And all of a sudden, bam, you get that strike. And it's one of the greatest joys of fishing. Until next time, folks, this is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report.